Welcome to the Empire of the Sun. This is part 6 of the Wisdom series, and so we will pick up where we left off as usual. And we are starting today with number 61, which says, have conviction, but also control. And the first note explains where I got this from, or where I started to think about this concept. I learned this playing basketball, and you need strength to get the ball to the hoop, but you also need control of your strength. Otherwise, you over or undershoot. And so the second note here says, do things with feeling so that you can see the elements behind life. Pay attention to the sensations when you do things right versus wrong. Pay attention to what right and wrong feels like. So basketball is kind of a funny example, but as I started to get better and better at basketball, I noticed there's a certain way to shoot where you can get it right every time, and it requires that you enter this zone of balance where you're shooting the ball with conviction but also with finesse and control. And so you need both of these things. And as I started to think about this, it kind of branched out, and I'm like, well, this is kind of true for a lot of things in life. And conceptually, it really is just about balance. And so that's, I think, where the truth of this lies. But I do think it's a good metaphor, basketball or any kind of sport where you need conviction, but also control. It could be the same with all kinds of things. If you're something you're good at, you could reflect on this and see it for yourself. So have conviction, but also control. You should be you should have conviction behind the words that you say. There should be some place that it's coming from that is giving you that conviction, because then your words can be more powerful. But you don't want to let this go so far that you become annoying, overbearing, or just difficult to understand. You should have control over your conviction and use finesse as well. And so really, it's all about balance here. It's the same concept I've been speaking about over and over. And I'll move on from this one. I won't linger on this too long because we've already discussed balance quite a bit. All right. Number 62 says, thank God for the opportunities to push yourself and explore your limits. Thank God for the opportunities to push yourself and explore your limits. The note to this one says, don't grumble about bad circumstances. And I put bad in quotes, like quote unquote bad circumstances. Be grateful instead, because circumstances are what you make them, right? There can be difficult circumstances, but whether it's bad or good is up to you, because I believe there's almost always something to learn in difficult circumstances. There's almost always some sort of gold that can be found in those circumstances, even if that gold is just you learning to handle the circumstance with grace, not to grumble about it, not to complain about it, but to have your eyes open for any opportunities to gain wisdom from the situation, to learn some sort of lesson. I think this is a much better way to be. And of course, with all things, this has to be directed towards God. So you want to thank God for the opportunities to push yourself and explore your limits. And this can be one way that, difficult circumstances help us, is because if it's bringing us to a point where we are finding it difficult, or we're tempted to get upset about it, or it's pushing the limit of our patience, it's pushing the limit of our self-control, that right there, where you feel that difficulty and that tipping point where you could see yourself tipping over into your old ways or into bad ways of handling it, you maybe even start to get upset. You may say, a few bad words, or say a few bad things, or start to talk negatively. When something brings you to this point, it's actually a good opportunity for you, because you're seeing where your weaknesses lie, and you're being given an opportunity to push yourself past that limit, because you've come up against a limit in your life, and now you have the opportunity to go beyond that. You have an opportunity to become stronger and better. And so that is a gift. If you look at it that way, it is a gift. Almost all difficult circumstances are a gift in this way, especially if it's it's in the word difficult. If it is a difficult situation, that means on some level it's pushing us, because if it wasn't pushing us, it wouldn't be difficult. And in that difficulty, in that uncomfortableness, just like in the gym, you're given the opportunity to grow stronger, and you are growing stronger. So there's a lot of power in looking at difficult circumstances as opportunities, rather than just bad things that are happening to you and victimizing yourself, or blindly going into rage, bitterness, or any other negative thing that may come out of you. Instead, observe and notice what comes out of you, and use that opportunity of knowledge to become stronger. So, moving on to number 63, and this is probably the one that I most want to focus on today, because I think it's very helpful, and I'll just get into it. It says, number 63, it says, make memories you can cherish later, not memories you can't enjoy without guilt. So I'm going to read the note to this one first, and I'm going to explain what this means as well. The note says, this is mostly aimed at sex. Sex is wonderful, but if it's outside of marriage, when you finally do marry, those memories will haunt you, not bring you pleasure. So, especially if you're someone who's seeking God, if you're seeking to do things righteously and do things the right way, and you're in a situation where it is difficult to put away all the sin in your life, and it's difficult to see a good enough reason to avoid certain sins, such as what I just mentioned. Well, this is a very useful logic behind why you don't want to do those things. It's not just, oh, you wait till marriage because God said so. I mean, that's difficult to do. This world's full of temptation, and we have a biology to us that makes it extremely difficult, especially if you're living with someone. It becomes almost impossible without a strong conviction from at least one person, ideally both people, on why it shouldn't happen. So this right here is the conviction, I think, that will really help you. To me, this was a great epiphany. And so I'll read it again. It says, make memories you can cherish later, not memories you can't enjoy without guilt. So, this applies to everything, though. It's not just this particular topic, but anything that you're doing, it's good to look at it in terms of, how would the future me perceive this? If the future me succeeds in overcoming all of these obstacles and all these sins in my life, if God helps me overcome these things, if God transforms me into a person that I can't recognize now and who will be unrecognizable from who I am today, if that's truly what God has in store for me, which, by the way, I'll give you a spoiler, that is what God has in store for you. It's what God has in store for everyone. He's written scrolls, and he's written about you in a book, righteous works and righteous acts that you should walk in them. He has a plan for all of us. God has a great plan of redemption for the whole world, and you're a part of that. He included you in that plan. He relies on you to be a part of that plan. He has you as his contingency plan, or not even his contingency plan, a part of his actual plan for redemption. You serve a function in that. He gave you that honor, and he gave all of us a place and a role to play in that. it was pre-written about us. It was written before we came here. And that is the truth. And so there is a version of you that will be transformed by God into someone completely unrecognizable from who you are today, if that transformation has not already occurred. And so this is for you who that transformation has not yet occurred for. And you may be asking yourself, well, how do I avoid this sin or that sin? Well, remember, first of all, that we can't do anything of ourselves. But what I believe is God gave me these ideas and these revelations and epiphanies, whatever word you want to put on them. He gave these to me so that I could share them with others. And through that Spirit, the same Spirit that gave it to me, the same Spirit that speaks through me, will also speak to your conscience, and it'll bring certain things to remembrance. And these will be tools for you later. And so these are things to remember and understand, but it's not something you can do by your own willpower. It's something that'll be a tool that God can use later to remind you. Just like if you read the Bible, the words that you read can be used as tools later to convict you or to give you clarity or to give you peace or whatever. Not that my words are akin to what's written in the Bible, but like I said, I do believe that the Spirit was moving through me when I wrote these. That's the faith that I have, that God had a plan for me from the beginning, even though in this moment I was not made perfect. I had not been transformed yet. It all comes back around because God is outside of time. And so back to the topic at hand, if you're someone who hasn't been transformed yet, remember there is a version of you who is transformed, and don't add things, add memories to the future you, things that will haunt the future you. Because the future you will wish that they could take these things back. It would give up the temporary pleasure any day to get rid of the guilt that you may feel. And the guilt can be overcome, and God doesn't want us to live in guilt, but these things will make you feel guilt later. And then that's going to be an extra obstacle to overcome. And it's going to be a memory too that, will flash before you in moments you don't want it to flash before you. When you're with your true spouse, when you're with the person that God has for you, you don't want these memories to haunt you. You want to be able to give the fullness of your love to the person that God has for you, not to have other things dragging you down. So that's a reason right there for you to think about these things a little more seriously. It's not as harmless as you may think. Yes, Jesus paid the price for all our sin, but there's consequences for sin. And the consequences are things that trust me, you don't want. In the future you does not want these things. And so think about that when you are presented with moments of temptation. And I think it will help you. All right, moving on. 64. Hope in anything besides God is evil. Hope is akin to faith, so never have hope unless you pray first. Now, this one's a bit strongly worded. I don't know if I would word this so strongly now, but at the time I was going through a lot of what I would call hope traps. I was putting hope into worldly things and putting hope into good outcomes for my life without directing that hope towards God or asking God what he wanted from the situation. God, what are you trying to tell me about this? God, will you show me and tell me the things you want me to see and hear? That wasn't my attitude. My attitude was, I'm going to put myself out on a limb and I'm going to hope that it works out because God is good and he's not going to let me fall. He's not going to let me suffer too much. But my heart wasn't right. And my hope was turned into something evil because it was a weapon used against me. The hope was really a temptation. It was a temptation that I fell into. I would put hope in the wrong things. And then when the things wouldn't work out, that's when bitterness was allowed to sprout forth. And so hope was, false hope can be used as a tool to bring about bitterness. And I spoke about this before, but this is a more strongly worded way to say it. And before I had more of a pessimistic view on hope, where any sort of a hope is bad. But as I said before, that's not true. And so I refined this over time to say that hope in anything besides God is evil, because hope is akin to faith, and you shouldn't put faith in anything besides God. And so ask God, should I put hope in this thing? Is this hope from you? Or do you have something else for me? And he'll show you. He'll show you what's true and what's not. And so don't fall into the trap of hoping in things that are not of God. Don't fall into the trap of hoping in things without first praying about it, because that hope can very well be used against you later. And it's not something that many people think about, hope being a weapon against you. People think about hope as just always being a good thing, but it's not always a good thing. And I hope I've made that clear. It most certainly can be used as a weapon because of the disappointment that comes from hope unfulfilled. So be careful with what you hope in. Make sure that your hope is godly hope and directed towards God and faith towards Him, not faith in worldly things. And so we'll move on now. Number 65 says, dull your edge. Having an edge can be an advantage, but too much causes irrational and erratic behavior, which leads to mistakes and regret. So this is more of a personal note because I don't know what your edge looks like. I don't know what your personality looks like, but I know what my personality was like. And I can have a very fiery personality at times. In the sense that I can sometimes see challenges and get very excited about the opportunity to overcome the challenge and to make war against the challenge. And this is a good thing. It's a good thing to have that zeal to you to overcome challenges. But this can be taken too far, and you can have so much of an edge to you that you become erratic, irrational. And this irrational behavior leads to a lot of pain because you overdo things, you go too far with things, you overshoot the mark, and you want, in this situation, if you're this type of person, you want to remember to dull your edge. It's good to have conviction, but make sure that it doesn't go too far. It kind of harkens back to the very first thing that I said. Again, as I've said before, these are things that I was overcoming, and they didn't all go away at once. I would overcome them in stages. And so if you're someone who has a very sharp edge, you may want to dull it just a bit so that you can be more controlled and balanced and get better outcomes in life and not overshoot the goal. All right, number 66 says, what do you see when you observe yourself as if you don't know yourself? And the note here says, what unconscious habits have developed? So this is something that I heard Jordan Peterson say back when I used to listen to him. I was very lost, and I was looking for anyone who could point me in the right direction. And Jordan Peterson served that function at this time of my life. But the problem with Jordan Peterson is that he has not given himself to God. And so as useful as some of the things he says are, there's only so far you can take it because the depth of the spirit isn't there. And so it's really surface level things. But this is one thing that he said that I think is very powerful, and you can actually take it deeper. What do you see when you observe yourself as if you don't know yourself? What unconscious habits have developed? It's always good to take stock of yourself to, especially in this day and age, right? Because as I've said before, we are bombarded with distractions of all types. You have a phone with you pretty much at all times, which is sending you notifications, trying to get your attention, trying to draw you into scroll loops where you just scroll mindlessly and move on to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And this gets you into an autopilot mode of being where the autopilot of scrolling permeates out into your life, and you start to live life on autopilot. And even without the distraction, this can happen, especially if you're a person who has a life that is very scheduled out. You have a work schedule that is set in stone. The work is monotonous, or the work is the same pretty much every day. If there's, patterns that happen every day, that, routines that happen every day, that you kind of get stuck in, that's when habits get developed unconsciously, and some of those habits are not good. So make a note to stop here and there and just take stock of yourself and observe yourself as if you don't know who you are. Like, you don't observe yourself as if you're observing another person, as if you have never met yourself, and just see how you act. How did you act? You can even do this after the fact. You can do this at the end of the day. How did you act throughout the day? And if you are looking at yourself outside yourself, how would you look at that person? How would you view that person? What things would you change or improve, or what things do you like versus you don't like? I think this is a useful practice, and it just increases your self-awareness and causes you to break out of loops that are destructive cycles, essentially. And of course, you want to bring God along with these things. You want to do this in a spirit of prayer. It's much better to do this with God's help and in collaboration with God. God, I'm going to observe myself, and I invite you, Jesus, to come with me and tell me and show me anything you want me to know or see about how I acted throughout the day. And then you just go through your mind and you remember everything, and you do this towards God, and he will reveal things to you that he wants to change about you. And he'll give you ideas and pathways to do exactly that. And so I just think this is a good practice, especially if you're someone who has a lot of routine in their life. All right, number 67, live life logically. Don't do things that hurt you. Sometimes we need to hear things and be reminded of things that seem very simple, but we've forgotten. It really goes back to, like I said, a lot of these kind of link into each other, the same as, Proverbs links into each other. That's where the inspiration for this came from. And so live life logically. Don't do things that hurt you. You can get an autopilot and just keep repeating the same mistakes, keep repeating the same old bad habits. But if you stop and think about things and you just remind yourself to live life logically, don't do things that hurt you. If you know that something you do has in the past had consequences, if you've started to observe your life and notice how certain sins, when you do them, there's a consequence for it. So bad things happen. The day after, or the very same day that you do those things, things start to fall apart. Things start to go bad for you. You start to get more agitated more easily. You start to feel bitterness. You really need to observe the consequences for the things you do, because most things that you do are going to have consequences, especially the wrong things that you do. God is constantly correcting us and trying to guide us back to him, and he uses consequences to do it. So if you're doing things that are wrong and you know they're wrong, you need to observe what happens after you do it. You need to have an awareness of this. How do you feel afterwards? Do you feel guilt? Do you feel shame? Do you start to feel more agitated? Do you start to feel more bitter? What consequences are you noticing? That's step one. Step 2 is when you notice a pattern of consequences after your actions, after the wrong actions that you take, that you know are wrong, then you simply remind yourself, I need to live logically. Why would I purposely do things that hurt me? Well, you do them because you can't resist the temptation, or you're willing to pay the price of the consequence because the temporary pleasure is worth it to you, or the temporary gain is worth it to you. Eventually, there's going to be a breaking point. Eventually, the consequence will become so great and the pleasure will be so diminished that you're going to need this reminder to break yourself out of it. You're going to say, why am I doing this? Like, this has reached a point where I'm hitting diminishing returns on the pleasure I'm getting from this. I'm hitting diminishing returns on the benefit I'm getting from being dishonest or living deceptively or purposely doing sin that I know is wrong, or purposely doing things that I know is wrong. The pleasure, the gains I'm getting from this are diminishing and the consequences are getting greater. So this is illogical now. This doesn't make any sense to do this. It's just, and that right there, like that, just that realization will break you out of some things, because it did for me. That's how I overcame things in moments where things had spiraled out of control, where I'd gone so deep into something that the benefits of it, the benefits being like, temporary pleasure or whatever, they were diminishing. I wasn't getting as much pleasure from the things I was doing. And then, so I just realized, like, this isn't even worth it. Like, I'm paying all these prices for it. I'm not even getting anything for it. Like, this is junk. I'm done with this. And so it would help me overcome it. It would help me overcome it for a time. But obviously, as I've mentioned before, to truly overcome, you need a transformation. Only through a transformation can you truly overcome permanently. But these are useful tools to kind of guide you along that journey of transformation, to get you closer to transformation, to build up ideas and habits in you that allow you to reach a point where transformation is possible. And so that's the purpose here. So we will move on to number 68. Number 68 says, ultimate attraction is to give what you want. Put out into the world what you want to receive. So, the atheist and the non-believers have figured this out, some of them, and what's called the law of attraction. There is a law of attraction that is a real force, but it's not, it's been given a worldly dressing to where there's truth in it, but there's truth in it and you will benefit from following it. But just like all things, if it's not directed towards God, if it's not directed with the right spirit, any gains you get will come crumbling down on your head later. So you may temporarily gain, but you won't be able to sustain it because you're not a vessel who can hold the blessings that you get from following the law of attraction, from following really faith and the principles of attraction. So ultimate attraction is to give what you want, to put out into the world what you want to receive. And the notes to this say, if you want love, give love. If you want wealth, give wealth. Parentheses, tithes. See everyone as an opportunity to practice kindness. See everyone as an opportunity to practice kindness. If you want to be a more kind person, if you want to receive kindness from others, then you need to practice. And everyone that you come across when you're going to the grocery store, you see something you like about someone, give them a compliment. Be kind to them. Let the Spirit of the Lord, let the love of the Lord flow through you and bless others. Be a vessel for that. And as you do these things, you'll get these things back to you. If you want love, you have to give love. If you want wealth, you have to give wealth. This is the function of tithes. Not the only function, but tithes are a way to bless you. It is a way that you can give to God what is rightfully His, because He gave you all things and He can take away all things. And so you give what's owed to him, and you give it with a spirit of joy and gratitude in your heart. And as you do this, you'll receive more back. And that is ultimate attraction. Ultimate attraction is to give what you want. If you want something in life, if you're not getting what you want, then you need to start giving the thing that you want. If you want to be loved, then give love. And this can be, a lot of people are lonely, right? Especially men. Men these days are very lonely, very isolated. And a lot of young men are very bitter about it. And they get into these modes of being where they just start, hating women, or, doing away with women entirely, and going into the ways of stoicism or all these coping mechanisms, giving up, getting into porn, using porn as an outlet for what they want from a woman. All these things, right? These are bad solutions to the problem. But there's a good solution. If you want a spouse, if you want someone to love, and if you want to be loved, then give love. Become a loving person. Everywhere you go, practice it. Everywhere you go, practice being a loving person. Every time you go out, make sure that you say words of love to at least one person, and let it come from the heart. Ask God to give you the words and show you the person he wants to pour his love out on through you. Be an agent of God's love. And as you do this, eventually you're going to give love to the person who God made and prepared for you to give you that love back. Eventually you'll run into the person who's right for you. God will make it happen. God brings us our spouse. He brings us the person who's right for us. He's the one who sets all that up. We can get lucky, and we can find it on our own, but it won't be the same as it being blessed by God. So do things the right way. Find a spouse the right way, not through manipulation techniques and going into these, red pill ideologies because you're bitter about women and you want to manipulate them now to get what you want. That's not the way. It just leads to more heartache. It just leads to more emptiness. If you want true love, give true love. And true love comes from God. Remember that. And so I'll move on. Number 69 says, humility increases gratitude, and gratitude increases joy. When you're humble, when you approach life in a spirit of humility, rather than a spirit of pridefulness, I deserve this, I deserve that, instead of I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, I'm grateful for this opportunity to push myself, even though this is a difficult circumstances, this is a difficult circumstance. Even though I'm facing difficulty, my humility tells me that this is an opportunity and I should be grateful for it. Humility increases gratitude. That is a reason to be humble. The world is not humble. If you seek to mimic the world, if you listen to songs that impart the ways of the world onto you, if you do things that make you more like the world, you'll start to see humility as a weakness, as something to despise rather than to aim at. So I'm giving you a logical reason why humility is actually a powerful tool, and it makes you more powerful. It doesn't make you weaker. Humility makes you stronger, not weaker, because it increases your gratitude. And what does gratitude do? Gratitude increases your joy. And what does joy do? Joy overflows into worship. And what does worship do? Worship breaks the chains of bondage off of you. The things you struggle with get broken off of you in the spirit. You see the cycle that happens here? What happens after things get broken off of you? Well, then you become more grateful. What happens when you become more grateful? You become more joyful. And the cycle continues. enter this positive loop through humility. Humility is an entryway into this positive cycle. There's great wisdom in this. I hope it benefits you. Number 70, righteousness, peace, joy, and the other fruits of the Spirit are supernatural elements of life. They are clear evidence of God. This is something you'll have to meditate on, but righteousness, peace, joy, the fruits of the Spirit, joy is not happiness. Happiness is not joy. They're two different things. Happiness is a temporary thing as a direct result of something that happened to you, or a direct result of something you did to bring it about. It is a reactionary thing, and it's fleeting. It's very fleeting. Happiness never lasts, ever. It never lasts. Happiness goes away oftentimes as quickly as it came. It never, ever lasts. By definition, it's a temporary thing. That's how I define it. But joy is a spirit. Joy is a fruit. It's something that's continual. You can live a life of joy continually because the Spirit of God renews in you every single day. Every single day, the Bible says He gives us new blessings. Each and every day, new things to be joyful for. This is a spirit that gets renewed every day, so it becomes eternal. So joy is greater than happiness. And joy is a supernatural element of life because happiness cannot last. It can't last forever. So what is this happiness that is eternal? It's supernatural. It's called joy. And if you meditate on this, you'll see it for yourself. It's a supernatural element of life, and it's clear evidence of God. It's not a physical thing that you can pinpoint and say, oh, this neuron caused this joy to come about that didn't go away. This chain of events caused this, and it's just your neurological pathways firing in a certain way that causes something to come about because it's an evolutionary advantage or whatever. That's absurd. And if you're someone who has any kind of intelligence, you'll recognize that how absurd this is. There's something else going on when someone has a joy in spite of problems that doesn't go away, that other people can't manifest. And you see the patterns. What's the pattern of these people who have joy? Well, they have God in their lives. Bingo, there's your evidence. So the scientific mind can search these things out and find that what I'm saying is true. And so really this is just more evidence of God. And it's just something I wanted to write down because I like coming to things that to me are clear evidence of God. And so we'll move on to number 71, which says, sometimes God brings us low so that we learn to fear Him. Sometimes God brings us low so that we learn to fear Him. God's not bringing you low because He's picking on you, because He enjoys your suffering, because He's indifferent to your suffering. He's bringing you low sometimes because He wants you to learn to fear Him. He wants you to learn that if you do certain things, there will be consequences that bring you low, and He has power over your life, not you. You cannot escape His consequences if He's chosen to correct you. And if He's chosen to correct you, count that as joy. Don't grumble and be mad about it. If God has presented consequences for your actions, that means He loves you. He corrects those He loves. That's what the scriptures say. All those He loves, He corrects. And that correction brings you closer to Him. It teaches you to fear Him so that you can gain wisdom. You gain wisdom so you can live a better life, a more prosperous life, a more peaceful life, a more joyful life. These things come from wisdom as well. So remember, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And if God is doing things to teach you to fear Him, Count it as joy because your wisdom is also going to increase if you choose to fear God, if you choose to give heed to that. So if you don't know why God is picking on you, if that's how it feels to you, if your life is just suffering continually, it may be because God loves you and he's bringing you low to fear him. So begin to fear him, begin to fear his consequences, begin to fear his correction, because his correction does not feel good in the moment. You wouldn't ask for, God to punish you in life. You wouldn't ask for that. You don't want that to continue to happen, right? So begin to fear his punishment, begin to fear his correction, and begin to be grateful for it as a way to fear him and a way to step out of his punishment and overcome the things that are holding you back through fear of God, the only thing that you should ever fear in life. So I'll move on. This is the last one, number 72. It says, remember, we see through a glass darkly. If true reality were shown to us, it would petrify us. And the note to this one says, reading Revelation and imagining the scenarios reveals this. If we were shown the true reality that we live in, the true reality of what evil forces are doing behind the scenes, the true reality of what's to come, the great deception that's coming, it would petrify us. And so remember that we see through a glass darkly, and it's not just with negative things, but we also don't see the fullness of the good things either, because God is so deep that we would never understand it anyway. That's why you should not ask God the question why. Like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? If he told you, you wouldn't understand it anyway. God's ways are so much higher than our ways, you could never understand it anyway. So don't ask God why. Ask God to reveal himself and to speak to you instead and to guide you and put your faith in him. You don't need to know why. All you need to do is trust, and through trust, your life improves. And so, again, just remember who you are. We have a very limited understanding in this life. We have a very limited vision in this life. We see such a small part of the full picture, such a small part. I mean, we have blinders on at all times in our life that does not allow us to see everything. And those blinders are a blessing. And, if true reality were shown to us, it would petrify us. It would make us go mad. So we can't handle the fullness of reality. So remember that we see through glass darkly. Remember you don't understand everything. Don't become prideful. And this is really a call for trust. That's what this saying is. This is a call for trust. To overcome your trust in yourself because you realize that you don't know everything and you can't know everything. Your understanding is so limited. You see maybe not even 1% of the fullness of reality. That's how little we see. That's what I said is most likely true, less than 1%. So with that understanding that you see so little, trust becomes a much more reasonable thing. Trust in the face of a lack of understanding. God, I don't know why you told me to do this. I don't know why you want me to do this, or why you want me to be this way, or why you don't want me to do this or that. But I'm choosing to trust you anyway because I know that you are ultimate reality. I know that you see things that I don't see, and that you're going to reveal these things to me as I step out in trust. As I step out in faith, there's great benefits that are on the other side of that. And so the realization of how little we see is a call to faith. And I hope that's how you receive it. And so with that said, that's where I'm going to end. I have gone a little quicker through this one than the last two ones, because Well, first of all, and these are kind of self-explanatory. A lot of them are hearkening back to things that have already been said, but also because I am very eager to get to the last part of the series, which is going to be the next part 7, where I have a very powerful note I'm going to end this series on that is going to bring everything together and give you a clear pathway to success, wisdom, and a closer relationship to God. And I am so excited to share that. So I wanted to get through this quickly because in the face of what's to come, this is just a stepping stone. So thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. I hope this has blessed you, even though it was a little quicker. I hope that some of the things I've said have spoken to your spirit. I pray that the things I've said have spoken to your spirit and benefit you, because that's the purpose, is for your benefit. And I thank God for all of the increase and benefits that have flowed through me out into the world and into you, the watcher. And thank you so much for watching. Until next time.